Hello and welcome to Coffee with Dr. Carla. I'm Dr. Carla. This is Carson, and we're really glad that you're here with us today. Our goal is to talk about mental health related issues and hopefully start to end some of the stigma around them, because we know the more we talk about these things, the less that stigma can be able to take hold of them. And so, you and I have the ability to work together because you're working towards becoming a certified mental skills consultant, right? And just figuring out what that all means. And so I've been lucky I've got to have you come on as an intern. And I do know that as we talk about various aspects of performing athletes, musicians, whatever, right? Surgeons, you name it, CEOs. This idea of arousal is very important, because you don't want to be lethargic where trying to get through, but you also don't want to be like because then you can't focus either, right? So it's one of those types of things. So maybe talk a little bit more about arousal and from that mental skills lens. How do you perceive it, and how do you help people conceptualize it and harness it?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that beautiful demonstration. So there's
Do you
kind
like do you like that?
of two ends of the spectrum
Yeah.
as far as arousal. So when we think of arousal, it's these bodily sensations that we then interpret as whatever we may interpret it as. So that kind of scale, the example that I give athletes is you just woke up from a nap versus Energizer Bunny, which now I
Right.
might just start screaming at them. But so there's kind of like that range, right, of like hyperness almost.
Yeah.
And we get different bodily sensations. So let's say you get the classic butterflies in your stomach,
Sure.
and you might interpret those as, you know, that I'm going to use athletes as my example.
Sure.
Because
Yeah.
that's primarily who I work with. And so when you're stepping up to the free throw line and you have those butterflies, you then your body and your brain, you decide, okay, this nervousness is normal. I always feel a little bit nervous when I'm about to take a free throw. And it's either panicky of like, oh my gosh, now I'm getting anxious. What if I miss this free throw? Am I going to get taken out because of this
Sure.
free throw? And like all these thoughts, cycle. Or is it like, oh, these are those good jitters. I'm pumped up. I'm ready. I'm not too low. Just woke up from a nap. I'm right in that perfect amount of
And
excited.
I'm not.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I'm not
Yeah.
out of control.
Right.
It's this just means I'm ready. And so same butterfly feeling, but two completely different interpretations. And then because of that, you're gonna have two different outcomes. So if you're thinking, oh my gosh, what if I miss? Probably not gonna shoot your best free throw. If you're thinking, oh, this means I'm ready, like I'm excited, let's go, probably gonna have a more successful free throw.
Sure. And you bring up such an important point, that what we notice in our body, right? Um, just is,
Mm-hmm.
and it doesn't have any meaning until we attach a thought to it.
Right. And then it can't impact our performance until we have the thought. So it's this cycle.
Exactly. Right.
That's always happening. And, I always come back to just awareness is like your superpower as an athlete and performer. So understanding that this cycle happens, it's going to happen no matter what. Even if maybe you drink your pre-workout or whatever, and that gives you jitters. Even if you take that out, there's still going to be environmental factors that make you feel either high or low on that arousal. So maybe, it's a really big stadium and that you have no control over that. And so that's going to make you feel extremely like intense and hyped up, and more towards the end of Energizer Bunny. Or maybe it takes a really long bus ride to get to the game, and you can't control that. Yeah, and it's a rainy day, you're losing,
hot or whatever.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and so there's gonna be, even if you tried to control, everything you ate and everything you did as part of your pregame and your warm up, and you got sleep, and you try to make yourself set up for success as far as I'm gonna feel like I'm in my zone. There's still gonna be so much affecting you that will lean you towards one of those ends of the spectrum. So the key is figuring out A, that this happens, and then when that happens, I have thoughts which impact my performance. Now B, what can I all the things, what can I control? What can I do?
What can you do? Right.
Yeah.
So what are some of the tips that you give these athletes? Because there are some factors we can't control.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we can control our thoughts to begin with, right?
Yeah.
But there's even other things to help increase or decrease, or more narrowly focus our arousal, right?
Mhm. So typically to begin, I give my athletes that scale and
Continue on, right? Yeah.
and I ask them to think about, when you're performing your best, how do you feel mentally and how do you feel physically? So we start to reflect on, okay, I'm going to use soccer as an example. So, when I'm playing really well, I feel really light. It's just smooth, kind of effortless.
Right.
I feel confident, and we're writing these things down like, okay, this is mentally what's going on. You feel confident. Physically, you feel loose, you feel calm, right? And so then we kind of plot, and it gets real like evidence-based scientific for them, which is
Sure.
helpful because it's not just
You could see
these
it
thoughts. Yeah, they're like, okay, this makes sense.
more concrete.
We find their zone, so the individualized zone of optimal functioning, so eyes off.
Yeah.
And we explain everyone's got a different zone, everyone has different needs as athletes, so you figuring out, oh, this is how I feel when I play my best. Great. Now how do we get there? And how do we get there when, pressures of coach are making me lean towards Energizer Bunny? I guess I was doing it this way.
Good.
Or the rain and hot heat, whatever is making me go down. How do you get
when
back
we're
in that zone?
losing, or
Made a mistake.
make a mistake, right? Like, how do I continue to get myself there and not slip down
Right.
or too far up? Because I'm
Right.
trying to overcompensate, right?
Or maybe you just scored a goal and it's like, okay, but you have the rest of the game to play. Like, yes, that's exciting, but you
Right.
gotta calm
Do
down
your victory thing, and then
and then
move
get
on.
back in the
Right.
zone.
Yeah.
So that's step one is what is my zone? What feelings do I need to recreate to feel productive and good and be successful? Once you know that, then you have kind of your go-to tactics for when you're too high, what do I do? And when I'm too low, what do I do? So I like to have athletes I think power phrases are a good one to begin with. So
Sure.
what are you going to tell yourself when you're down 5-0? All your teammates are, complaining and negative around you. How are you going to get pumped up? How are you going to energize yourself? What do you say to yourself? And then for the flip side of that, when things are, you just made a mistake, you're feeling really panicky, your arousal is too high, you're feeling really anxious, how are you going to calm yourself down? So what can you say to bring yourself up? What can you say to calm yourself down? And then once you kind of get a feel for recognizing those moments and, practicing the power phrases, sometimes the phrase isn't for everybody. So then you get to, maybe it's a cue, maybe you take a deep breath, maybe it's, when I am starting to feel too jittery and overwhelmed, I'm going to just roll back my shoulders,
Get my shoulders out of my ears,
I'll
yeah.
adjust my jersey,
Yeah.
or I'll, tighten my ponytail, or you come up with what cue works for you, because not everyone's gonna, think to stop and say their power phrase, and
Right.
Whatever. So there's different things, and so having like your pregame routine, practicing imagery, like there's all these different tools that either get you pumped up or help you calm down, and it's a matter of figuring out what works.
And it's interesting because I think as a spectator for whatever sport, we don't realize how much this stuff is really happening on the field. I was putting together a little workshop for some athletes, and we were talking about the power of I am, but we were also talking about, like, again, this idea of taking some control or some measures in order to influence your arousal state, right? And I found this really cool NFL video where they had, you didn't hear it wasn't like the commentators and stuff like that, which we were used to seeing as the spectator, right? What you heard was the athletes, so the mics were on the athletes for this particular thing. And the phrases they were using to pump themselves up, to get themselves regulated, do all this stuff was awesome.
Yeah.
So again, professional football players. So it's not like, okay, Carson and Carla are being kind of weird. They're telling us to do all these things, but like, we're talking about professional football players, and the best part was, I don't mind watching, football, but I wouldn't say that I'm in the know, but the people who they were featuring were people I knew. So like, so you're like, okay, so clearly this isn't just some cheesy thing, right? Yeah. So arousal is tough. And I got to bring back to when you describe finding that zone, right? I suppose you could try to figure it out on your own, but the reality of it is this is where a professional becomes so crucial, right? And I will also say that it's really important to find a certified mental skills consultant, excuse me, because there's a lot of people who say they can do this, And maybe they can, but if they're not certified, they haven't gone through the rigors to become certified, you're taking a chance about, what their training really is. So just something to keep in mind. Um, but yeah, such an important topic. Thanks so much. And so remember, you can change your thoughts, discover your potential, and transform your life by focusing on your overall well-being. So until next time, continue working on being the best you possible. Bye now.